All right, so ready to unlock the secrets to financial freedom with us today.
Always.
We know you're all about exploring new ideas, and especially love it when we go international. So
Yeah.
when you sent us that article, in Mandarin Chinese no less, about 36 ways to build passive income, well, we just had to dive in.
Yeah, the idea of money working for you, not the other way around, it's pretty universal, right? And this article, it really shows how many different ways people are trying to make that happen.
Totally. And to organize it all, they've grouped these 36 ideas into 5 main categories. So we've got financial methods, digital and online businesses, knowledge-based income, then using physical assets, and finally, for the people who think big, it's enterprise level. Catchy big.
Definitely covers all the bases. Where do you want to start?
Let's hit those financial methods first, because even those can be more interesting than you'd think.
It's not all about hiding cash under a mattress anymore.
Exactly. This article gets into stuff like high-yield savings accounts, dividend ETFs, even peer-to-peer lending.
Makes sense. Those are hot topics these days. When interest rates are so low, people want their money to work harder, right?
For sure. And one thing this really caught my eye was about these high-yield savings accounts, but in Taiwan. They were saying you could find rates from like 1% to 8%. Crazy compared to what we're used to seeing.
It really shows how global finance is becoming. If you've got the knowledge and the stomach for it, people are looking beyond their own borders for returns. It's exciting, but also kind of intimidating, if you ask me.
Totally. Makes you wonder if it's worth, looking into those options overseas. But then I think about dealing with different financial rules and regulations, and my head starts to spin.
Yeah, I hear that. Not for the beginner, for sure. It takes a lot of research and planning. But that's part of why we do these deep dives, right? Just opening your eyes to what's out there, even if you don't become an international finance guru overnight.
Exactly. So speaking of things that might need some explaining, let's talk peer-to-peer lending. If you ever tried that.
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's basically like cutting out the banks, right? You're lending money directly to people or businesses with, obviously, the potential for higher returns.
Right. So, how does that actually work? Do you just, put an ad online, money to lend, good rates?
Not quite that simple, thankfully. There are platforms, Lending Club, Prosper, they connect borrowers and lenders and handle all the details. You become the lender, setting the terms, interest rates, all that.
Oh, okay, so that makes a lot more sense. But there's got to be a catch, right? Like higher risk.
You're right to think about risk, always. Like any investment, gotta be smart. Biggest thing is, what if someone just doesn't pay you back? You gotta do your homework on the borrowers, spread your lending around, diversify, that kind of thing.
So it's not quite as passive as sticking your cash in a high-yield savings account, even if those high yields are in Taiwan.
Exactly. You're taking on more potential for things to go wrong. And that brings us back to knowing your risk tolerance, which is key for any of these passive income ideas.
Yeah, it's not one size fits all, right? It's about figuring out what works for your goals, how much risk you can actually stomach. Okay, so we dipped our toes into those financial methods, but let's be real. When I hear passive income, the internet comes calling.
Can't argue with that.
And this article, it does not disappoint. They have a whole section called Digital Hustle. I love that.
Has a nice ring to it, doesn't it?
It does. And they mention everything. Selling digital products, we've got affiliate marketing, drop shipping. Honestly, it's a lot. But one that really stood out, might sound kind of wild, was this example of someone using AI to actually write and illustrate a whole children's book.
A few hours, it said, right?
Yeah, just a few hours. And then they were selling it on Amazon. What?
It does feel like something out of a movie, right? But it shows how much technology is changing the game. And they were saying with these AI tools getting easier to use, it's breaking down the barriers to, writing and publishing, stuff that used to be really hard to get into.
Totally. Imagine a few years ago saying you could make a book without writing or drawing it yourself. People would think you were nuts. But here we are.
And it's not just books. We're seeing AI doing this everywhere. Music, marketing, you name it. Definitely some big questions there about jobs and what even counts as art anymore.
Oh, for sure. That's a whole other deep dive right there.
But for someone looking at passive income, gotta admit, it's powerful stuff.
Absolutely. It feels like we just opened a door to a whole world of possibilities. And then you start thinking, what's next? What else will AI change?
$1 million question. No crystal ball here, unfortunately. But we can learn from these early examples, see where things are headed, and be ready to adapt, I guess.
Love that. Okay, so we've got AI writing bestsellers, which is pretty out there. Let's bring it back down to earth for a sec. The article also talks about affiliate marketing, which, I'll be honest, I've always found a little confusing.
How so?
I don't know, it's like, how do you actually make money from it?
It's pretty simple once you get the hang of it. You basically become like an ambassador for a company or a product you really like, you know? You promote it to people on your website, social media, whatever your thing is. And when someone buys something through your special link, boom, you get a commission.
Oh, okay, so like being that friend who's always recommending the best restaurants, but now you actually get a little something for your great taste.
Exactly. Though, gotta be authentic, you know? People can smell a fake recommendation a mile away. You gotta genuinely love the stuff you're promoting.
It's all about trust in the end, right?
Yeah, 100%. And that takes time to build. It's not just spamming links everywhere. It's gotta be strategic, something that actually helps your audience.
Gotcha. Got to provide that value. So from the digital world to, well, something a bit more old school, shall we say. The article also talks about knowledge-based income. And this one really speaks to me.
I can see why. You're all about sharing what you know, helping people learn. And the cool thing is everyone's got knowledge they can share. They just might not realize it yet.
Right. And the options there are endless. Online courses, ebooks, coaching, even something as simple as making templates for Canva, Notion, all that.
Exactly. And with these online learning platforms popping up everywhere now, Udemy, Skillshare, even YouTube, it's never been easier to share what you know and maybe even make some passive income from it.
It's amazing. Though, something that surprised me, they were kind of down on book royalties. Like, they made it seem like traditional publishing isn't really a good bet for passive income anymore.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And honestly, we could do a whole deep dive just on that topic. But basically, even though publishing can get your name out there, those royalty checks, they're often not that big.
So it's less about getting rich off book sales and more about using the book as a way to, like, build an audience and then find ways to make money from that.
You got it. It's about using the book to create other income streams. Maybe that's speaking gigs, consulting, even an online course based on the book itself. The book is the start, not the end goal.
That's a really important distinction.
Yeah.
And it actually reminds me of something bigger about passive income. It's often about having multiple streams of income working together, not just relying on one thing.
You're preaching to the choir. Diversify, diversify, diversify. That's the name of the game. Could be digital products, online courses, affiliate partnerships, even real estate if you want to go there.
And speaking of real estate, because this article takes us in some unexpected directions, the next section, well, it's a bit of a curveball.
You mean the part about vending machines and laundromats?
The one and only. Never thought I'd be talking about those as passive income, but here we are.
Right. But that's what I like about this section. It forces you to think outside the box, look for income in places you wouldn't expect, even if they seem, well, a little boring at first.
It's like thinking outside the vending machine, I guess.
Exactly. And yeah, maybe vending machines and laundromats aren't the most glamorous businesses, but they offer stability, you know? Once you set them up, they pretty much run themselves, which is the whole point of passive income, right?
Right, set it and forget it, kinda. Though I did find it interesting, they mentioned that in some places, like Taiwan, those car washes you see, often more about, like, holding on to land as an investment, not just the car wash income itself.
It shows how culture and economics play into it all. Something that's a simple business here might have a whole other purpose somewhere else.
Always more to the story.
Yeah.
And speaking of more to the story, this last category in the article, I think they're pushing the limits of passive a little bit.
You're talking about the enterprise level stuff, like starting your own company, being an angel investor, all that.
The one and only? I mean, hey, I'm all for big dreams, but that feels like a whole different level compared to, like, making an online course or setting up a vending machine.
Right. It's a different world. Way more commitment, risk. You probably need a lot more money to even get started. Definitely not something you'd call passive in the usual sense.
True, it's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, even though those ventures take a ton of work up front, the goal is usually to create something that does make passive income, eventually.
Right, so it's more like you're playing the long game. Putting in the work now, hoping you can step back later and it'll just keep generating income without you. Exactly. Like, think of someone who builds a successful startup. At some point, they're not doing the day-to-day anymore, but it's still making money. Or an angel investor. Their early bets pay off big time, they're getting dividends, royalties, without lifting a finger.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. It's about building that machine that runs itself, eventually. Not that there's anything wrong with liking to be hands-on, of course.
Of course. Different strokes. But to bring it back, even these huge companies, those angel investors, it all starts with an idea, right? Just like we were talking about, digital products, courses, just on a much bigger scale.
It's true. maybe the next Google starts with someone using AI in a totally new way, or an online course that just blows up, you never know.
Exactly. And that's what gets me excited about exploring passive income. It's not even just about the money, it's the idea that you've got more control than you think. You're not stuck with just the 9 to 5. There are other ways to build the life you want.
100%.
Yeah.
Whether it's a little side hustle or, building a whole empire, you have choices. This article really drove that home.
And finding what works for you, that takes some self-discovery. What are you good at? What do you actually enjoy doing? How much risk can you handle? Got to answer those questions first.
Not one size fits all at all. It's about creating your own path. It's kind of exciting when you think about it.
It is. So as we wrap up here, anything in particular that sparked an idea for you? Something you hadn't considered before?
It's funny you should ask. I actually did have a bit of an aha moment back when we were talking about, I'm going to save that story for another time.
Oh, cliffhanger.
Yeah, we'll leave them wanting more. But seriously, we covered ATON today. Need some time to process it all.
I hear that.
So, to everyone listening, keep those brains buzzing. And remember, even exploring an article in Mandarin Chinese, that could be the start of your passive income journey. See you next time.